Hello, friends. This episode is sponsored by Choose Life. Sister Lucia of Fatima said, "There is no problem, I tell you, no matter how difficult it is, that we cannot solve by prayer of the Holy Rosary." Our sponsor of today's episode is a firm believer of these words. Choose Life is a small Catholic business whose mission is to equip all Catholics with rosaries for life, and they mean it. Choose Life has silicone rosaries for babies and beautiful gemstone rosary bracelets for adults. The silicone rosaries are soothing for your little one and will also help to build wonder and love for the rosary. Imagine seeing your little one totally loving on a rosary made just for them. It's like seeing your baby hold hands with our Mother Mary. And the rosary bracelets for adults, so beautiful and so well made. A really neat feature of the rosary bracelets is their bookmark crucifix charm. If you don't have time to get through a whole rosary at once, no worries. Simply use the charm to hold your place until you come back to it. To see these and more of their products, head over to their website, www.chooselife.com. That's CHEWSLIFE.com. As a special offer to Abiding Together listeners, use the code ABIDE10 for a 10% discount at checkout. God bless.
Well, hello, dear friends, and welcome to Season 12 of the Abiding Together podcast. We are so excited to be back with you for another season. Abiding Together is a place where you can find connection, rest, and encouragement on your journey with Jesus Christ. And we have people from all over the world on this walk together, and you are most welcome. My name is Sister Miriam James, and every week I'm joined by two of my very dearest friends, Michelle Benzinger and Heather Kim. And we speak about what the Lord is doing in our life, the movements of the Holy Spirit, what is breaking our hearts, what is healing us, and where the Lord is leading us to deeper relationship with Him. So wherever you find yourself today, wherever that is, you are most welcome. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and welcome home. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Abiding Together podcast, our last episode of Season 12, friends. Can you believe that?
Whoa.
Michelle, dear, how are you today?
I am great. It is a spring day and it's beautiful outside. And I mean, there's a lot going on, like we were talking about before, just different dynamics, end of the school year. I think everyone's facing some challenging things, but Jesus is still Lord and we're still keeping on. Heather, how are you?
At least we're telling ourselves that.
Yeah, exactly.
We are still here. I mean, there's some things I have to remind myself, I'm like, wait, I am still here.
True. And it still is the Easter season, so yeah.
Yeah, I am still breathing. No, okay, yeah, there is good in the world still. Okay, yeah, we sometimes start very low and then build ourselves up, through the day and seasons like this.
Remember to breathe, like take a deep breath, breathe in, breathe out, like, okay, you're holding your breath right now. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's the basics. We still have a lot of school left over here up in Canada. So you're at the end of your school year, but we're still kind of like still going hard. Everybody's trying to hang on for dear life to get to the end. So anyway, we sound a little dramatic, I think. Sister, how are you?
Very dramatic. Well, I add to the very dramatic here, but it is true. Like when I went for a little walk this day, I was like praying about that. I'm like, Lord, it is the Easter season and I'm just going to proclaim the truth of your resurrection over everything and that you are the victor and that, all the things that are happening right now in our hearts, one day it will not matter. Like one day we'll be with you and one day everything that's such a big deal right now will not be a big deal. We'll look at it like, all right, that was something, but yeah, it's not the final say. So I'm very grateful for that. But as we kind of think of wrapping up the season, we wanted to do an episode just on fruit, like Holy Spirit and fruit, and a very personal understanding of that as we began the season with looking at the mysteries of our own, glorious, sorrowful, joyful, luminous mysteries. We want to close the season kind of in a full circle of, what is the Lord doing in that? What has He done in the last several months in our lives? And so for our scripture quote this episode, we're going to take from the Song of Songs. It's a very beautiful, beautiful book in the middle of the Bible. Song of Songs, chapter 4, verse 16. And it says, "Awake, north wind, and come, south wind. Blow on my garden, that its fragrance may spread everywhere. Let my beloved come into his garden and taste its choice fruits." And the quote from St. Hildegard of Bingen, and she says, "Holy Spirit, making life alive, moving in all things, root of all creative being, cleansing the cosmos of every impurity, effacing guilt, anointing wounds. You are lustrous and praiseworthy life. You waken and reawaken everything that is in us." And that is so St. Hildegard of Bingen. That reminds me a lot of you, Michelle and Heather, both of you. But Michelle, you want to share with our listeners kind of what stirs in your heart as we talk about the very stirring quotes?
Yeah, I think for me, like when we were I think there's a really good spiritual practice or spiritual discipline to stop and pause and remember, like what are the things that the Lord spoke to us this season? Because as we said often, many times on the podcast, like we're on a journey. So we need to remember like kind of like little signposts on the journey, like what has the Lord done? And reflect and remember. And I think that's a really important practice. And when I was thinking about it or praying about this, just to awake and where have the areas that I've been sleepwalking through my life and what are the areas that the Lord has been really awakening me. I think one of the things we touched on over Lent was just awakening me back to a love of the sacraments, a deep love of the sacraments, allowing the sacraments and the church as a mother to heal me in an embodied way, which I've never approached the church that way before. I've never approached the sacraments that way before. And I think when I was reflecting on it this morning, praying about it, because I knew we were recording today, when I was like, all right, Lord, what was awakened in me? And I think just this season has been a season of deep grief for me. And I feel like I'm starting to come out of the grief, and usually out of grief comes life. Like that's the cycle of life, like grief comes life. And I was in a class this week and I saw a picture of one of the teachers. And she was a woman a little bit older than I am. And she had overalls on and she was in her art studio and she was barefoot and her hair was in braids. And I started bawling. Like it makes me tear up now because there was something so strong about that image. And the Lord's like, almost like that's who you are and you've forgotten. Like there was something so strong in that image. Like that's like we're a place where you find home. And it was like, I was like, why am I getting emotional now? The Lord's like, pay attention to this. Pay attention to this ache in your heart. Pay attention to this desire in your heart. And it was like almost a reawakening of, oh, that is a desire and ache in my true self. And that's happened a couple different times in the last 2 weeks with like a book I read or a picture I see or something. And it's like the Lord's like, come on. Awaken up, sleeping beauty. You've been awake. You've been sleeping. You've been walking through the shadow of death. It's time for shadow of life. So yeah, that is me. What about you, Heather? What's the Lord awakening in you right now?
We're reawakening, yeah.
A reawakening. Thank you.
Michelle, I love that image. Right when you said it, I started smiling because I'm like, girl, that is you.
Yeah.
Like that is so you. That's exactly how I picture you in these coming years, especially as like your kids are almost going to be out of the house soon and those empty nest years coming. But I'm like, I just see you as full of, your creativity and all of that just like gushing out of you in the best way.
Thanks, friend.
I just want to hang there for a sec. Wait, what was the question? What's the Lord reawakening? I was like, wait, I'm just thinking about you and your overalls and your bare feet, girl.
Overalls are
What's
great.
The Lord reawakening? Gosh, he is reawakening all kinds of things. It's hard to put it into words, actually. I feel like he has reawakened a deep, deep love for him in this last season. And it's not like I forgot. It just has gone so deep. I think he's reawakened emotions in a lot of ways, in a lot of different areas for me. So that's one of them that I'm experiencing quite intensely. And it's not like it's like sunshine and roses and I feel like I'm just skipping through the fields with Jesus right now. It's not really how it feels, but it's sort of like this both and in the midst of some deep suffering, like his love has been overwhelming to me, but my love for him has been overwhelming to me also. Like I just regularly find myself in tears, just pouring out love on his feet. That's been the experience as of late. So it's just very deep, very intimate, very special. And I don't know what to do with it all. That's how it feels. It's like, it's an interesting stage of life to be. As you can tell, I'm stumbling over my words because I'm still unpacking a lot of that and wondering what the Lord wants me to do with all of that. And I don't feel that in the way of like, oh Lord, what do you want me to do for you? It's like, I feel this like do less and just love him more, just love him more, just let the love pour out more. Yeah. I'm just pressing into all the ways to do that. So that's one. I feel like I could say probably 20 things, but sister, how about you?
Yeah, we probably all could. Yeah, I think the Lord this last season has been reawakening desire in deeper levels and healing desire and integration of me and just noticing, just all the aspects of, the human person of, we talk about being, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, and as men and women, right? And the deep desire for deeper integration there and going to even deeper levels of healing and of honesty. Like that's my word for the year, of honest. And I think letting go of certain things, like letting go of old ways and old systems that are not helpful, that are not healthy, and allowing that place, my heart, to be filled with what the Lord is inviting me to. So I think desire, like our longing for what the unmet goods in our life, our longing for good, our longing to be immersed in beauty and goodness and truth and all the things that C.S. Lewis writes so beautifully about, that just captivates our hearts many times, of just seeing that in myself, of like the song of the little girl, right? The song of those places of creativity and to be able to pour out in that regard of how God is, opening my heart and leading me there. So it's very tender. All these places are very tender, and, we're sharing them in a way that's very reverent, but also just as human beings, they're just tender. Like it's not easy to share those things. And so just kind of reverencing that place as well. So I think here we're in the season of spring, about to go into summer, and the things are blooming, and there's pollen and there's bees. And I just think even being immersed in the springtime, which might sound like cliched, but it's just been very healing for my heart to be in a place as I travel, just to encounter spring. I'm like, oh, that's so deeply beautiful. I love it. Yeah.
That's beautiful, friend.
Yeah. So maybe we could just spend some time, and we'll put all these questions in the show notes, which might be a great conversation for you and the Lord in your journaling time. And also just if you have a small group or just, in your different friendships, just some perhaps deeper intentional questions. And so maybe we get to a couple of these. So Michelle, for you, what seeds have been planted in this past season, since we began in the last several months? What are some seeds that you notice the Lord has been planting in your heart?
I think the seeds of slowness and quiet, this has been a seeds of slow and quiet for me. It's been a lot of time really learning a deeper intimacy with the Lord. And I thought it would look a different way. Isn't that it? I think the older I get, I'm okay with mystery. I'm okay with not knowing. I'm okay with that things are going to be organic and messy. And I think for so often I try to be like hyper vigilant and control the mess, because that meant chaos and that meant things were out of control. And that would just trigger stuff from my story when I was young. So I would avoid that. But I realized if you don't have the mess, then it's almost like artificial living and it's not true fruit. And like, if you really want organic, good, juicy fruit, it's going to be messy and there's going to be just stuff, and you just have to allow it. And I always really, there was one of those quotes from Benedict that really annoyed me. We were not made for comfort. We were made for greatness. I'm always like, I like comfort. But what I was realizing in the last couple of weeks, I've been thinking about that quote for some reason. And the Lord is like, you're not made for comfort. You're made for a comforter. Like you're made for me, and I will comfort you. And you really replacing a deeper trust in him and his capability, and being okay with the mess. So it's like a seed of chaos and messiness. And like I said, a seed of mystery. It's okay that I don't know, because he's sovereign, and really leaning into his sovereignty, and his ways are not our ways. So we can either go with that or not. It's not working not going for it. So like we might as well try to go with it.
But I think embracing mystery, and I'm sure Heather, you probably agree, I think embracing mystery is part of maturity. It's like part of just the different pieces that we don't understand. It's not like a mystery to be solved. It's not like, the FBI or something, but we talk about, like the mystery of our faith and of something often beyond our comprehension. And I think being okay with mystery and receiving mystery and going into more deeply, there's something about that comes, I think, with maturity, like of holding all those pieces together and not having to fix it or save or rescue or be the savior, but Lord, sitting with suffering, I'm like, Lord, I don't understand this, but I trust you.
Yes.
I don't understand how this is going to fit together. I don't get this, or even the beauty, Lord. I don't even understand like the beauty, Lord, but I trust you.
Yeah, I think there's in the mystery, there's more of a long game kind of receptivity to the long road, that often I feel like when I was younger, it was like, I want to figure this out right now. I got to get this settled now. I got to work on this now. And all of that. It doesn't mean that in these years I'm becoming inactive. I think I'm just more open to the longer pathway, that sometimes things just take a long time to unfold. And so to be in that in between of not just waiting, but partly waiting, you're partly moving, but it's slow. You're just trying to stay in the pace of God and like not rush ahead. And I find my heart is more open to trusting him in all of that. So there's like an ease that's coming with the long places, the long journeys, the long sufferings, or the desires unmet, or aches that have no place, haven't found a home yet. So yeah, I don't know. That's part of it for me too.
What about for you, Heather? What seeds have been planted? Or maybe we can go on to our next question here also as well. Either one. What needs to be nurtured or tended to in your heart, would you say, this season?
Yeah, I think some of these questions are like melding together for me, which I think they probably are for you as well. As I think about different aspects, I'm like, oh, there's some desires that have been sort of planted that the Lord has partially reawakened in some way. One of them would be for community. I don't know what that means. I'm opening up, to certain things. So that's something that needs to be nurtured. The things that the Lord has been planting in my heart or stirring, or the excavating that's going on in there. I feel like I'm trying to be very attentive to my inner world and these parts of myself that I think I've set aside for a long time. There's a lot of desire, a lot of things that I think I need, that I like truly need. And I've just set it aside for so long. And I feel like this is a place that the Lord is like, it's time to spend some attention here, where normally I'll just keep going, no, that's not as important. I'll meet these people's needs, or whoever is like right in front of me. And the Lord is really asking me to take my own needs very seriously and how those are being met. And that might sound really easy for some people. That's not easy for me. It's not easy to say what they are. It's not easy to not take care of it myself. It's very hard to bring that to other people. It's easy to bring it to Jesus. Very hard to like open up these other parts of my heart to other people. Oh, yeah. So I feel like I have to be very careful, like filled with care, about these places in my heart that I think have been taking a lot of damage for a long time. Yeah. They need to be loved and nurtured well, if that makes sense.
Oh, completely. Completely.
How about you, sister?
Yeah, I think that, just think of like like you both of you are talking about, like those deep desires for creativity or for attending to those places of our heart. And this is not, we're not talking about self-centeredness or like, oh, this is all about me. We're talking about just responding to the way God made us and how he relates to us. And I think those places of our hearts, I just, have this image of like a cocoon, like a cocoon where things have to be tended to. And if like you tried, as little kids, when you did that in science, like third grade science class, you went out and got a cocoon, or like, and you watched it turn into a butterfly, like the little caterpillar turn into a butterfly. And if you try to force a cocoon open, it kills the little animal inside, it kills a caterpillar, that it never develops. And just the Lord's timing of that, and the environment that it takes, and the necessary care, and the love and the prayer, and just all of, just all of that. So it continues to rise and grow. And I think bringing those places to the Lord and the people that I love very much, that know me deeply, and praying together in those places and letting the Lord come to them and letting him open them in his own time. And I've been very convicted lately about the timing of the Lord, that his timing is everything, and just his providence. And we all have moments in our life where we say, thank God this didn't happen to me a year ago, or, I wasn't ready for this, or I couldn't have faced this, or, it's not just bad things or things that are suffering for us, but like beautiful things of like, oh my gosh, thank God I could not have appreciated that until this time. And so I think those are the deep and tender places that the Lord nurtures and cares for, that are entrusted to us, and also to the people with which we walk to, because we're not meant to walk in isolation. So I think that's what I noticed kind of, in my own heart at this time. But Michelle, what about for you? What do you see in your life that nurture, tended, or is pruned, or choice fruits, or what all the questions are on the show notes, but what about you? What's stirring in your heart as we talk about these things?
Yeah, very similar to both of you. Yeah, very similar to both of you. Like, I think I said, sister, this week, like, I'm learning like the litany of tending to my own heart and what my own heart needs. And what is, I think for me, I've abandoned myself in ways. And so, and in that self-abandonment, it can turn to selfishness. instead. But like, as I'm learning, and learning just the movements in my own heart to ask other people like, hey, this is what I need from you in a life-giving way, like where it's mutual giving and receiving, and where I'm a really good giver in a lot of ways. Or if I feel like my gifts aren't received, or if I get like, don't have really good boundaries, then I'm a taker, but I'm a mean taker. Why am I not getting this? Where it's like, okay, that's immaturity in me. Like that's something, a part of myself that when I was little, like I abandoned, and I need to go back there. And the Lord really needs to heal that part to come. But like a simple conversation, like Chris and I will walk and process things, and I will ask him a lot of questions. And my husband is a great communicator, often much better than I am. But I'm like, honey, I need you to physically ask me how my day is, how my heart is, and what I'm getting. And he's like, oh, I don't? And I'm like, no. He's like, well, I just expected you to tell me these things. Like, you volunteer. I'm like, I know. I usually will volunteer the information, but it makes me feel like you're really ready to receive it if you ask the questions. He's like, okay, great. And he was totally fine with it, And but the day before I'm thinking like, why is he not asking me this question? And I'm like, okay, hello, you're a mature adult. You can tell him what you need. Yeah. So it's beautiful that. And I think one of the things the Lord is really just pruning for me is self-justification, justifying things that, okay, well, this is part of my story. So this is the reason why I do that. And when I justify, the Lord can't purify is what I've really been getting and praying for. I mean, I was praying yesterday and that was the word. Like, he's like, if you justify this, then I can't purify it, and it will not be refined, Michelle, and it will be a heavy yoke upon you. And I was like, okay, all right. And so the ways I've justified myself, and really that's a posture of my heart, where I put a wall or where I've frozen the Lord out, or a behavior that I just don't want to let go of. Like, I'm justified in this response or this behavior or this. And you may be right, but right doesn't mean unnecessarily holy. Like you may be right technically, but it doesn't mean because your heart is not right. And so a lesson I'm learning on the journey here. So I'm going to flip back. So what do you feel like the Lord is blooming right now in your life? Or what fruit do you see that is starting to come to fruition right now in your life? Heather?
Oh, shoot. These are hard questions because it puts me in a very, very vulnerable place. Like I'm just in a very interesting and vulnerable season of life. That's just honest,
Yeah.
So the fruit that's being born doesn't feel good to me right now. Other than the love part, that is really precious to me. And I'm just like, I just can't even with the gift of that consolation that God is giving me, because the other fruit that I'm seeing doesn't feel good. It hurts right now. Like it's almost like when you see like something bursting out of the ground, like it has to break through. There's like a pushing that's happening.
Yes.
And I feel that in the fruit that's coming. So it's not like this big juicy fruit yet. It's just like coming into being. It's cracking through some stuff. So there's a pain involved with it, because it's not easy for me to feel to the depth of which I'm feeling right now. So that's a good fruit, actually, that my emotions and my inner and outer world are starting to come into sync with each other. But it's also painful because I have to also shed this other part. It's like two things are happening simultaneously. Fruit's being born. I'm having to shed this old husk or whatever it might be around it that is like a protective layer. So all my normal ways of doing things are starting to fall off, and that feels very exposing. It's like, yes, new little blooms seem very gentle, don't they? They seem very vulnerable and tender. That's how I feel on the inside and the outside actually right now. So I think I'm definitely feeling a lot more. And that's good. It's a really good fruit that's coming. I'm becoming very aware of different parts of myself that I had hidden for a long time. Not hidden as in like a bad way, but I just had sort of put them aside, maybe put them in a chest, and like closed the hatch on it for a bit. And so those parts are starting to come out, and I'm learning to, one, love those parts of myself, but also let the Lord love them. Especially the places that I think I've felt quite little, quite alone in some ways. And so I'm I'm starting to put some value on my needs, on certain parts of myself that I think I had just kept overlooking, kept aside, I'll just put it to the side, put it to the side, put it to the side. So it wasn't like I was intentionally like rejecting parts of myself or not embracing some of my needs, but I just realized, wow, I'm in a certain pattern of operating that has not been working for me in lots of areas for a long time. And those are good things to change. So the change is happening. The fruit is starting to come. But there's also the fallout of other relationships, because now I'm operating differently in relationships, and that's different for people too. So that doesn't always feel good. Like that's just oh, wow, we're all learning like all the new things. I feel bad because I'm sort of veiling some of what I'm saying, and I hope it's making sense.
Yeah.
But I hope it's making sense is what I'm saying. I feel okay about that, but I hope it's making sense.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, because like we said, these are tender places, and it's a deep work that the Lord is doing, and I think, it feels like a pruning and also a revelation at the same time. And like what you were saying, Michelle, like you can't have anything purified that we self-justify. And I think we all do that. Like if we all like double down on our things, or it's like, well, this is how I always do things, or this is how. And I have had so many experiences recently where I've been in a certain situation where I usually respond in a certain way. I've had tangible moments of him coming into that moment saying, you now have the ability to respond differently if you want to. I have walked you through this. I love you so much. I'm here with you. You can, at this moment, choose to respond differently. And just seeing the places when I do and when I don't, it's just amazing. So I can see that choice fruit of the deeper maturity, of a deeper response, of places where in my heart I would run away or shut down, but that I find myself being able to stay present or speak a truth that I'm afraid I might be abandoned for, but I can actually speak it. And then the places where I just like, no, I just want to do what I'm used to doing, And it's the difference is, so it's like the deeper pruning there, and not out of accusation of the Lord, but why do we prune things? We prune things and we prune them heavily at times so they can grow to their full maturity. So they can grow the choice fruit, so they can come to a deeper rootedness. And that's our whole life. I just realize more and more, like, nobody has their stuff together. We are all on a journey together, and we're all just so little, and God help us all that we ever pretend that we're not. It's just like we need a savior, we need a lover, we need Jesus. We need him so much. And oh my gosh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's good. I mean, even you mentioning those different parts, I was in a conversation with someone. It was very brief, but it's really hung with me that sometimes we just relate to God in certain parts of his identity and personality. And then we don't relate to these other parts. So it's like we might relate to him as friend, but we don't relate to him as Lord. Or we might relate to him, as like king, but not lover. And I feel that movement like in my own heart that Jesus is like, I want you to love all of me and receive all of who I am, and vice versa. I'm like, whoo, that's good.
Yeah.
It's hard. That's good.
It is.
So that might be something, friends, this summer as you sit with these things and walk with him of, seeing in your own heart what the Lord is doing and what he's awakening and what he's pruning and what he's nurturing. And yeah, so any last words before we go into our one things and kind of wrap this season up? Michelle, anything you want to offer our listeners as we finish the season here?
No, I think one last lesson, I think the Lord is teaching me, and I think all of us, I think with what's happened in the world the last 3 or 4 years, we've really partnered with fear in a lot of ways. And one of the things the Lord has really imprinted on my heart, especially the last 3 or 4 days, is like, you have to let fear go. Like, you have made agreements with fear, and you need to break these agreements and renounce them so that you can allow me to love you perfectly, like perfect love casts off fear. But also the Lord wants a fearless bride that comes to him with open abandonment. He wants one that just jumps into his arms and is not fearful. And like it says in the Chronicles of Narnia, he isn't safe, but he is good. And so just to really come to him with full abandonment and with faith, with arms of faith and not fear.
That's a good word.
It's all of us. I think all of us are on there, and we're on the journey with you, people. Pilgrims in the progress. I mean,
aren't we all? We are pilgrims on the journey. Whatever. That's just, song from the 70s. There you go.
Break it out, sister. Break it out.
I just had to throw that in there. Heather, the worship leader, is cringing now.
I was going to start singing "No Longer Slaves to Fear," but
I just threw it back, way back to the 70s.
If you want to go OCP, you go, girl. You go.
Oh, all right, dear Heather. What is your one thing? What is your last one thing of season 12 that you want to share with our listeners?
Okay, I have two. This is very appropriate for this particular episode. It's a song called Tend by Bethel. You all will love it when you listen to this episode. It is just so on point in the landscape of my life. You don't rush through any season. You take your time with your careful hand. Okay, it's so good. So just jump into that song. The other one is My Fruit Salad Tree. I mentioned this in previous seasons. We planted it at our property. I said, what a time to be alive. We have a tree that has been grafted with 5 different fruits on it. Now, there is lots of little blooms out there. I don't see fruit yet, but it's just seemed to go with this episode. But it is like flowers all over it. So I'm banking on some little fruit popping off that baby this summer. I'll take a picture. I love that
There
tree.
you go, Heather.
Anyway,
I'm so
Michelle.
glad.
Michelle.
Mine is a song by Rachel Morley called Before, Behind, Beside. And it's basically based on the prayer of St. Patrick. And it is from a beautiful live album, but it is gorgeous. It's like an anthem and a prayer all at one time. And that girl is just anointed. So I will put that in the show notes. Sister, what is your one thing?
Well, I'm changing it right now mid-season or mid-moment because I was just thinking of something. So I just had the opportunity to be with the Flourish Conference, Lisa Brennick-Meyer's conference, Walking with Purpose. And Sarah Kroger, who I just absolutely love, who's just stunningly gorgeous in every way. She led the worship and she sang a song she wrote called Detour. And we were all weeping. Like the heart of the chorus says, I've come to realize that the detour is the road. And it's like when detours happen, it's not, Lord, you don't love me, that you don't care about me, but the detour is the road. And so I just want to give a shout out to Sarah and just her honest, vulnerable heart as she writes and sharing from just, her own story and her own journey, which is it makes everybody can relate to that. So Sarah Kroger's song Detour is my one thing.
Ooh, I haven't heard it yet.
This season. Yeah. I had to make sure it's like even out. I was like, probably like, I'll double check that. But yeah, I was like, oh, it was so beautiful. So beautiful. So anyway. Ooh. Well, thank you, dear friends, for joining us for season 12. It's just been so delightful. Thank you to all of our listeners, all of our supporters, all of our Patreon supporters. Thank you. Just thank you so much. It is always a delightful encounter to just see you wherever we go and to receive your emails and all of your comments on social media. We just bless you. We wish you a very fruitful and blessed summer. And let's just continue to allow the Lord to tend and to cultivate and to plant and to prune and to bring everything into the fullness of life. So until next time, we will be abiding together. God bless you. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. If you liked it, would you please share it with a friend and leave us a review? We encourage you to head over to our website, abidingtogetherpodcast.com, where you can find all the show notes, links to our one things, group discussion questions for each episode, and beautiful coffee mugs, t-shirts, journals, and prints in our shop. There you can also subscribe to receive our weekly email with links to each new episode and all of the content. We'd love to connect on social media and invite you to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter so you can catch inspiring reflections every day. You're also welcome to join our private Facebook group and dive deeper into discussions with our fellow listeners. If the podcast has blessed you, would you prayerfully consider financially supporting us? The Abiding Together podcast is only available due to the generous support of our listeners. There are significant costs associated with creating this content, such as tech support, design, website, equipment, and hired staff that we need to be able to continue offering great content. Abiding Together is a nonprofit 501c3, and all donations are tax deductible. You can make donations of any amount through the Patreon website, or you can send us a check directly if that's easier for you. If you donate $15 or more per month on our Patreon page, you become a tribe member, and you will receive bonus content every month, such as recipes, music playlist, downloadable prints, and more. You can find all the information at patreon.com/abidingtogetherpodcast. Thank you so much, and God bless you.